On my dad's retirement night, with 200 guests and a wall of cameras, my name vanished from the VIP table, an empty seat saved beside the successful daughter, while I, Julie, was pushed to table 12 behind a pillar. Anyone can teach elementary school, they laughed. I swallowed it. Then he, my quiet husband, stepped up to the mic. One question, one email. The whole room changed color. Have you ever been erased from your own family's story for not being shiny enough? In the next 60 seconds, the truth about $5 million and who actually holds the power will make you stand with the people who wear chalk on their sleeves. Stay to the end. You'll see how Table 12 moved to the center and why different does not mean less. That night, I, Julie, went to my father's retirement party. The ballroom blazed, name cards aligned, cameras parked in front of the stage. I thought I'd sit with family and celebrate his 30 years as principal. But when I reached the VIP table, I saw every name, except mine. There was an empty seat right next to my stepmother's daughter, Jessica. Empty, yes, but not for a public school elementary teacher. Patricia smiled like she'd practiced in a mirror. Table 12 for you, dear. You'll be with your colleagues. The words, your colleagues, sounded like a budget ticket. Table 12 sat in a corner, half hidden by a pillar. I looked down at my navy dress, the one I wore 3 years ago when I got my teaching award, not out of style, just not worthy of front row. My father brushed past, straightened his tie, and murmured, "It's just logistics, you understand." I did. In rooms like this, design outranks education. At Table 12, I could hear Jessica across the room talking about a big lawsuit. Every time she laughed, cameras pivoted. And me, I teach 8-year-olds to sound out words. No one takes a photo of the first time a child reads fluently. No one live streams a teacher paying for supplies out of pocket. Those things don't fit the gala vibe. Dad took the mic. He thanked the board, donors, colleagues. When he got to family, he pointed at the VIP table. My wonderful wife, Patricia, and I'm proud to have Jessica here. Period. No me. Not a single my daughter is a teacher. 30 years in education. He knew every metric of achievement except the smallest, steadiest one, a classroom making progress. At my table, a coworker touched my hand. Must be a mistake. It wasn't. It was a choice. Choosing glitter over care work. Choosing to treat teachers as backstage, while the name cards up front decided who was seen and who was hidden. I'd like to say I wasn't hurt. I was angry. For me and for the many like me, angry that chalk-dusted hands aren't glossy enough for magazine covers when those hands turn a child's life around. Angry that a name card can erase you from your own family story. If you've ever been pushed to your life's Table 12, you know the feeling. Wanting to stand up and argue while fearing you'll become their proof. See, that's a teacher. I swallowed it. Not to accept it, but because I knew. The truth about value doesn't need to scream. It needs to be seen. And that night, the whole room would see it, starting with the empty seat at the VIP table and the very loud silence that followed. The Grandview Hotel looked like a carefully built stage. Amber chandeliers, ivory linens, a white orchid at each table, money paid for appearances. I, Julie, walked in and understood the rules. Whoever sits near the stage gets a story. Whoever's behind a pillar becomes set dressing. My father, Robert Hamilton, stood by the entrance. Charcoal suit, administrative smile, polite, measured, on message. He shook hands on autopilot, thanked people by script. To him, tonight was a 30-year performance review. Only the audience wore tuxes. What stung wasn't the chair. It was how he switched from principal to father, but kept the principal's voice. Beside him, Patricia, my stepmother, glittered like a thesis statement. We're doing life right. She knew camera power and which side of her face caught light. The hand at a guest's elbow, the lowered voice when saying Jessica just won a case, all choreography to feed the spotlight. Jessica, Patricia's daughter, wore red and stood dead center in the room's soundscape. She is articulate, fluent in deal cadence. But what I noticed more was trajectory. The lenses snapped to her like reflex. I, elementary teacher, fell outside the frame, the way our profession often falls outside success stories. Marcus, my husband, was minimalist, black suit, black tie. People call that not seeking attention, but I know he's never invisible. He checked his phone a bit too often, yet his other hand kept holding mine beneath the table, steady as if to say, I'm here. He doesn't love show. He loves preparation. When asked what he does, I'd shrug. EdTech supports public schools. Turns out simplicity can be armor. At the back, table 12, the teacher's cluster. You'd recognize it from the slightly shy glance when a camera sweeps by. The carefully ironed blazer that still isn't this season. Ms. Tran, math, whispered, let's pretend it's a big parent meeting. We laughed, a teacher's way to catch breath before a hard period. And David Chen, the foundation's board chair, quiet, scanning. His eyes didn't stick to the stage. They read the backline. Teacher tables, tech booth, name cards. The kind of leader who knows good decisions hide in details others call trivial. The set was ready. Lights, blocking, players. But more important was the current underneath. Marcus's texts, the media crew pre-installed, the empty seat beside Jessica's name card, and my father's evasive eyes when I asked about seating. A normal retirement party doesn't need layers of security, doesn't recite sponsor roll calls on a massive backdrop, and doesn't overuse connections. If you teach, you know this feeling. Observe, take notes, wait for signal. In class, before tackling a hard problem, I tell kids, read the prompt carefully. That night I was reading the room's prompt. It said something was coming, something that would force people to answer honestly, not with words, but with choices. The derail didn't start when I was sent to table 12. It began when the mic popped and my father, Robert, spoke in his principal cadence. Thanked the board, donors, principals. Every line sat neatly, like bullets in a lesson plan. I sat up, promising myself, there'll be one line for me, just one. When he reached family, he pointed to the VIP table. My wonderful wife, Patricia, and I'm proud to have Jessica here. Cameras swung, applause snapped tight. Then, he moved on. No Julie. No, my daughter is a teacher. It felt like being crossed off the roll sheet seconds before attendance. Still in the room, but the system decided I didn't exist. I breathed. Let it go. It's his night, I told myself. Until he announced the big news. Sponsor logo glowed behind him. He spoke of a $5 million commitment to the Hamilton Education Foundation. The room gasped. Good for teachers, good for kids, I thought. Then, and I'm thrilled to announce who will take my place on the foundation board. Jessica Morrison. Air disappeared. People stood to congratulate. Patricia dabbed a tear, time for the lens. Jessica accepted with a red carpet wave. I sat, fingers pinching polyester. 3 years earlier, he'd promised that board seat to me. 3 years I compiled reports on teacher burnout, drafted mentorship proposals. In return, Jessica brings legal perspective and corporate relationships. For an education foundation, I stood, not to cause a scene, but to ask the minimum of a promise maker. The VIP table fell silent. Dad, we need to talk. Robert set the mic down, voice half a pitch lower, but still controlling. Not now. Patricia wrapped velvet around a blade. Wrong moment, Julie. Jessica, soft but firm. A multi-million-dollar foundation needs the right skill set. I didn't shout. I spoke at conversation level. That seat was promised to me. I'm a teacher. I know what a classroom needs. Jessica shrugged. Good intentions aren't enough. We need vision. Patricia added seasoning. Anyone can teach elementary, dear, running a foundation. She didn't finish. Phones around us were already up. Not mine, theirs. People were recording. I heard myself answer, short, clear. Anyone can stand in front of a class. Not everyone can teach. Muscle memory and the last straw. Robert signaled security. 2 suited men approached. Escort her out, Patricia said softly, soft enough that the lapel mic still caught it. A few gasps. Table 12 turned. Someone tapped. Go live. Marcus stood. He didn't snatch the mic, didn't posture. He stepped between me and security and asked calmly, "We'll go, but before we leave, one question." He looked at Robert. "Did you read the donor conditions thoroughly?" The rhythm shifted. David Chen looked up. Dad frowned. "Who are you to ask?" Patricia scoffed. "A teacher's +1?" Marcus didn't bite. He turned to David. "Please check your email." David's phone lit. His brow furrowed, then deeper. In that moment, I knew some switch had been flipped for the rest of the night. Robert tried to reclaim the script. "Let's proceed." But attention had migrated. People were done with who sits where and moved to who meets the foundation's conditions. Marcus met my eye. No bravado, no glee. Just, "I'm here, and so is the truth." That was the spark, when a promise became stagecraft, when teaching was belittled on mic, and when the rules pivoted from spotlight power to bylaw power. Security was close enough that I heard static between their earpieces. Patricia kept the hostess smile. "Please maintain order." A smile for cameras, not me. Phones rose. Someone whispered, "The stream is on." Being humbled in front of 200 stings. Being humbled live to thousands cuts colder. I straightened. "I'll leave," I told security, "but I want one answer first." Robert gestured, and Marcus moved half a step, fully between us. He didn't raise his voice. He asked something precise, professional. "Was tonight's board appointment approved per process? Minutes? Donor sign-off?" The room jerked its handbrake. The glad handing paused. Phone screens opened. A David Chen lifted an eyebrow. "Fair question." Robert adjusted the mic. "Of course, it's my foundation." Marcus stayed even. "With a strategic donor, bylaws usually clarify who nominates and who approves. You may have just announced a decision with conditions attached." From table 12, a breath exhaled. "True," Ms. Tran murmured. A reporter edged closer. Patricia chuckled. "An elementary teacher debating foundation law?" Marcus ignored the jab. "Please check the email I just sent. Subject, board appointment, compliance check. Key clauses highlighted." David read, fast, then slow. His finger stopped on bold lines. I couldn't see the text, but I saw the color drain. Not anger, recognition. The bone in the bread. "This isn't a courtroom," Robert said. But the room had changed roles. "Congrats," Jessica morphed into, "Which clause? Where are minutes? Who approved?" My private humiliation shed its skin and became a system question. And system questions need documents. "Permission," David said in crisis voice. "I'm seeing donor conditions requiring classroom experience on the board and pre-approval for senior appointments." Silence long enough to hear shudders. Patricia tossed, "Approval will come. Tonight is goodwill." Marcus, "Goodwill isn't a legal term. Announcing without pre-approval is a compliance risk." The word compliance moved like a faint scorch, hard to see, impossible to ignore. It's the word that can cut the music. A teacher at table 12 raised her hand, timid but firm. "May I ask, how does a foundation for teachers have no sitting teachers on the board?" That question needed no law, just a spine. Robert clung to ceremony. "Respect the event." His eyes stabbed me. "Happy now?" Strangely, I was calm. I didn't need to win with volume. I needed the truth to carry. Tonight, the truth had its own mic. Email, bylaws, clauses. Marcus offered another beat. "If helpful, I can read the highlights so we all share context." He sounded like a person opening a book to the class, not a man chasing points. David lifted a hand. Wait, I need to cross-check with counsel. He turned. I propose pausing the appointment announcement pending verification. A rustle went through the room, not applause, but the whisper of understanding. You can mock a teacher as ordinary, but you can't pirouette past the clause. The button press came the professional way, a document with the right lines visible. David looked up. I'm reading donor terms requiring direct classroom experience on the board and written pre-approval for senior appointments. Air shifted. Gala veterans know that language flips nights. Robert steadied. The donor will agree. I know them, Marcus. I think you know them less than you think. Half step forward. Phone to David. Please open 7.3 and 7.4. David read, then lifted his eyes. 7.3. Maximum priority to members with classroom experience. 7.4. Board composition must reflect disciplinary diversity, including at least one currently teaching educator. Phones pointed at clauses, not gowns. Patricia flexed a smile. These things are flexible. Tonight is ceremonial. Marcus. 12.1. Announcing personnel without approval constitutes a breach. He let the words breathe, not a threat, a reading. Robert snapped, Who are you to tell me how to deal with a donor? Marcus. The person responsible for that donation. The room paused. Patricia scoffed, Don't be ridiculous. Marcus exhaled, stepped to the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, a formal introduction. I'm Marcus Hamilton, founder CEO of Tech Edu, the $5 million donor. First, a collective inhale, then a machine gun of shudders. Table 12 half rose, then sat. Ms. Innistrand's hand flew to her mouth. I could hear my own heartbeat change tempo. Marcus kept it low and clean. I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here to remind us that value is not a speech, it's a term sheet. Our conditions are plain. If a foundation serves teachers, it must be led by or with teachers. Jessica squeezed the mic. Terms can be negotiated. Marcus tilted his head. Before you announce. Now please read 3.2. David enunciated 3.2. The donor may redirect or withdraw funding if the recipient fails to meet the core values in 7.3, 7.4, 12.1. Robert went pale. You'll read the contract, right? He asked Jessica. She swallowed. I skimmed. As per usual. David cut in, dry. There is no as per usual once ink is on paper. The murmurs this time were consent. Marcus pivoted, not cruel, just final. Therefore, as donor, TechEdu withdraws the $5 million from the Hamilton Foundation effective immediately. A silent boom, then a chorus of quick breaths. Robert surged. You can't, I can, and I am, Marcus said. Not as revenge, as mission-keeping. He pointed to the screen, TechEdu's logo beside a new title, Olivia Hamilton Excellence in Teaching Foundation. Marcus. The $5 million is redirected to a new fund with Julie, a current teacher, as founding chair and a board anchored by teachers and parents. Tonight, TechEdu will match every on-site donation, 1-1. The room burst. Chairs scraped, hands clapped, people shouted, I'm in! Union president, $10,000 from our emergency fund. A parent, $20,000 from the PTA. Phones chimed as the QR code glowed. Table 12, the dark zone, became the center. Patricia, manipulation. Marcus, compliance and respect. He turned to Robert, voice warm and slow. You don't have to choose your daughter. But you don't get to demean her profession, especially with a fund called education. David stepped up. Given the terms, I move to void Jessica's appointment pending review, and I welcome the invitation to the new board. He looked at me. If Julie agrees. I couldn't speak right away. At the teachers' tables, people were standing, some crying, some laughing, not for drama, for a rare moment when the paper rules protected the classroom. The twist wasn't mystery CEO unmasked. The twist was clauses becoming a shield for chalk-smeared hands. When Olivia Hamilton Excellence in Teaching Foundation lit up, the room's axis flipped. No more sequin sweeps. This was an on-site value audit. The QR flashed. The ting of donations pattered like first rain. People moved from praise to participation. Pledges, transfers, volunteer sign-ups. Table 12, once hidden, turned into a hub. David, to safeguard integrity, I'm pausing the earlier appointment. Emergency board session to follow. Short line, heavy door. Robert gripped the lectern. Patricia's smile stopped listening. Jessica blinked fast. Her phone vibrated like a fever. Marcus didn't hog the stage. He returned the mic to the room. This isn't a time to honor personalities. It's a time to return agency to teachers. He stepped to me. Small move, big signal. Power isn't the mic. Power is the choice. Ms. Tran raised a hand. I'll help design scholarship criteria. A PE teacher. If there's a mental health track, I'll coordinate. A parent. We'll build a mentor network. The fund had no office yet, but it already had a backbone. A reporter. Your message? I faced the lens. Tonight the clauses stood with classrooms. Tomorrow we'll prove it with spending. Supplies, training, retention, burnout support. No slogans, just work orders. The teacher section nodded the way doers nod. At VIP, whispers changed color. A couple of donors scooted our way, left cards. One said, "We'll sponsor rural teachers." Another, "We'll donate digital skills training." No more nameplates for photos, commitments for outcomes. The old script started billing out. The live stream climbed. The lines belittling teachers turned into neon, just not in the way they'd hoped. The Bar Association pinged Jessica. She winced and turned away from the camera. Patricia tried. Let's not politicize education. David, transparency isn't politics. It's baseline. He turned to me. Julie, will you accept founding chair as proposed? If yes, we'll minute it now. I looked at Marcus. He nodded, not to hand me a place, but to hold space while I stepped into it. I took the mic. My hand didn't shake. I accept, with conditions. Every decision passes a council of active teachers and parents. No one sits a whole year without time in classrooms, and 20% of budget goes to teacher mental health. Applause, not loud but solid. Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. He can argue tradition and status. He has no language for class visits, mental health, supplies, the things he forgot. That's when it happened. Table 12 moved, not the chairs, the eyes. People stopped asking who sits where and started asking where does the money go, whose hands, what impact. You could almost hear the tiny click as the old gear lost teeth. Marcus leaned in. The hardest part isn't moving money, it's moving habits. I smiled. In class, I do that daily. Then this fund found the right person, he said. The climax closed, not with a bang, but a work map. Criteria team, finance, welfare, community audit. No one chanted miracle. We counted how many rooms would get better next term. I wasn't rescued. I was trusted. Half the room, at least, chose practical value. Next morning, my alarm, homeroom list, and first period plan were exactly where I left them. Outside my classroom, though, the wind had shifted. My phone exploded. The anyone can teach elementary clip became a meme. It played over photos of teachers carrying toddlers, moving chairs for a child with needs, staying till 7 p.m. This wasn't just my family. It hit a public nerve. Robert moved first. At 9:15 a.m., the district announced he would accelerate retirement, effective immediately. Polite phrasing, clear meaning. At noon, the local paper ran. Legendary principal, controversial remarks, 5M redirected. Newsrooms love drama. Schools love process. Process says, If you show systemic bias against teachers, you can't sit in the chair that allocates resources to teachers. Jessica took the second wave. 10:40 a.m., a well-known attorney posted, "Reading contracts is not optional." 12:05 p.m., Foster Associates, reviewing reputational risk tied to a senior associate's remarks. 2:20 p.m., an internal note leaked, suspension pending review. It wasn't one bad line, it was a value system behind the line. Patricia tried to salvage. A late-night apology. I used poor wording. The internet isn't a country club table. It keeps receipts. Comments, embedded video, enlarged subtitles, restored context. By morning, her profile went private. No one rejoiced. This was an old lesson. Despise a profession, and trust will invoice you later. David Chen did the only right thing. 8 o'clock a.m., emergency board invites. Void the appointment. Rebuild structure to match donor values. Plan funding transfer. That afternoon, he called me. "Julie, from the classroom view, what's our 90-day list?" I opened my notebook. Essentials, PD, retention, mental health. I wasn't suddenly powerful. I just brought the list every teacher has in their head. Donors began moving. A small business DM'd, "We'll redirect this year's gift to the new fund. Ask for quarterly transparency." I said yes, with public reports, independent audits, and a council of teachers, parents, student reps. Real power isn't the amount, it's how you account for it. At school, colleagues tapped my door and gave a quiet thumbs up. "Not you're brave, but finally someone said it. We are not backstage." Parents emailed, "Thank you. We told our kids why teachers deserve respect." I read, then walked into period 2. Children needed reading practice today, not tomorrow. The job has its own metronome. That's the profession's dignity. Family-wise, Dad stayed silent. No public apology, no therapy request like I'd specified. Some people retreat to their living room and wait out storms. But this one doesn't run on calendars, it runs on values. The new fund's immediate fallout was work. Overnight, 300+ emails, rural book requests, early intervention proposals. Marcus said, "Hardest part isn't saying no, it's writing criteria to say yes in the right places." I nodded. In class, a 10 isn't for the prettiest talker, it's for measurable progress. So is our fund. Measurable, traceable, scalable. Fallout wasn't a collapse, it was a repositioning. People used to the spotlight learned the shade. Those at the edge of the room were invited to the table, and teaching, long called ordinary, stood at the center, with reason and with clauses. The rest we left to execution, because after any storm, the headline fades, but the rebuild stays. That evening, our apartment returned to old sounds. Kettle hiss, pen tapping, Marcus rinsing dishes so quietly you barely hear it. I spread a big sheet and drew 3 columns. Now 30 days, 90 days. No applause in my head, just tomorrow's reading list and the fund's ramp schedule. I called David. "Where do we meet?" He laughed. "If you agree, table 12. We went back to the Grand View ballroom, same table once half blocked by a pillar. This time sticky notes covered the linen. Teachers, parents, a mental health lead. I opened. This fund doesn't pose for photos, it solves. We split into teams. Criteria, transparency, board classroom hours. For my father, I wrote boundaries into an email. "Dad, I'm willing to meet if 3 conditions are met: 6 months of family therapy, a public apology to teachers, and a 90-minute session listening to the harm and demeaning the profession. If not, let's keep distance so we both have peace." I sent it, not to win, but to lay foundation. Days later, he replied, "I need time." I nodded, alone, without bitterness. Not every story needs a loud end. Some need a clean stop. Marcus watched me stack lesson plans and board agendas. "You okay?" "Not okay for a caption," I said. "I'm clear. Clear means on time for class, on agenda for board, in bed early enough to teach well. Clear means decisions run on standards, not anger. In class, the standard is phoneme progress. In the fund, it's measured impact and auditable transparency. We posted our public pledge: 1, quarterly impact reports; 2, 20% to teacher mental health; 3, mandatory 3 classroom sessions, quarter for board members; 4, anonymous feedback line for teachers. No slogan, just checkable commitments. At school, I taught reading group as usual, except Tommy, my former dyslexic struggler, volunteered first. He tripped in line 2, paused, breathed, kept going. I didn't say amazing. I said clear progress. His smile was the truest KPI I saw all day. By 11 p.m., laptop closed. I texted Marcus. Thanks for letting truth speak, not ego. He sent back an exclamation mark, his emoji nod. I taped a fresh note above my desk. Different less. Not for others. To remind myself, the strongest boundary is the inner one. Curtain down isn't lights off. It's roles finding home. Media gives the stage back to classrooms. Funds put money back in working hands. And I, Julie, return my heart to a teacher's rhythm. Rebalancing doesn't shout. It happens when you take attendance and start the lesson at minute 1. The rest, time and execution will say. In 30 days, we had our first impact report. 47 classrooms received essentials. 19 teachers funded for micro-credentials, 62 mental health grants, 6 to 8 sessions each. Not poster pretty numbers, right place numbers. By quarter 1, the engine ran. The board kept its classroom hours, 3 sessions per member per quarter. David Chen, glass boardroom veteran, sat in the back of a math class in the outskirts and filled 2 pages on wait time for struggling students. He returned with a proposal to slow down to go far, fund part-time aides for early intervention. It passed in 12 minutes because it measured pilot classes cut misreads by 21% in 6 weeks. Teacher retention in 2 pilot clusters rose 12%. Why? Not due to windfall salaries, due to backstops, a place to request shelves, a group to exhale with, a number to call when you hit bottom. We didn't replace schools, we filled the cracks. Media changed tone. Instead of, how did you win, they asked, how did you spend? I answered with a public dashboard. 72% direct to classrooms, 8% mental health, 12% upskilling, 5% evaluation audit, 3% lean ops, independent audit linked, anonymous input right below. No transparency slogan, just a link to check. Month 4, we launched Mentor 1-1 for new teachers, 36 pairs. Intent to leave halved after 8 weeks. 1 email. I stayed because in session 3, my mentor said, "You're good enough to be tired and worthy enough to get help. You can't buy that with a poster. It comes from time together." Family, the boundaries held. Dad didn't meet the 3 conditions, so silence stayed. He sent a handwritten note at 6 months. Proud of you. I filed it. Pride isn't accountability. When he's ready for the terms, the door is open, not wider, not narrower. Jessica left the big firm, joined a smaller shop, rebranded as work-life balance consultant. I don't sneer. People can remake themselves. But the lesson lingers. Read terms before fitting others into your hierarchy. I still teach 3rd grade. Tommy now leads the advanced reading group, teaching peers how to split sounds. The day we saw 2 lines on the pregnancy test, Marcus put a hand on my still flat belly. A special new student for a teacher, he grinned. One day our kid will read their first passage, I said, and I want to be there, not on a stage. 6 months in, we pinned 1 line above the fund's door. Every dollar's path should show what kids received. Titles, nameplates, VIP chairs, let them gather dust. The real achievement wasn't me moving from table 12 to center. It was dragging table 12 to the middle so the chalk-handed could co-write the plan. When they write, the words find light. 1. Value status. The VIP table measures seating, not substance. Teaching was sidelined for lacking glitter. Every turn proved the opposite. quality lives where impact happens. Clauses requiring classroom experience did what lights couldn't. Lifted practice over performance. Don't measure meaning with Zoom. Measure it by how many lines a child reads today that they couldn't yesterday. 2. Boundaries. Ikua, the floor of respect. Julie didn't win by being loud. She won by drawing clear terms. Therapy, public apology, 90 minutes of listening. Boundaries aren't fences for insult. They're the minimum contract for respect. In the fund, boundaries became policy, classroom hours, quarterly transparency, 20% to mental health. Written boundaries turn respect from promise into mechanism. 3. Choices, consequences. Everyone chooses, consequences clock in. Robert chose status, lost credibility. Jessica skimmed terms, lost position. Julie chose classroom first, earned trust. This isn't revenge, it's the old math. Repeated behavior writes reputation, and reputation sets terminal velocity when you hit truth. 4. Family equals respect, not just blood. Those who called Julie ordinary receded. Table 12. Teachers, parents, pulled her inward. Family in the new definition is the set of people who give real room to real work. 5. Self-recognition. Julie didn't wait for Dad's approval to believe she's enough. She validated herself by doing, teaching, building, standard setting. That shrinks the outside noise and shifts the drive from being seen to making visible. Motifs: VIP versus Table 12. Seating gap, center shift. Table 12 becomes the boardroom, power moving from decor to delivery. Microphone, from tool of imposition to reader of clauses, channel of truth. As seen, clauses emails /QR. Dry objects that keep value from being swallowed by spin. EdTech logo graduation cap. Money serves classrooms, not brands. Livestream. Public mirror. When contempt shows, norms recalibrate. Distilled messages. Teaching isn't backstage, it's the stage of the future. Put respect into rules, it lasts longer than adrenaline. To change the order, don't swap chairs, change the ruler. Different less, it's where overlooked value is created. And the line on our door, and for life. Every dollar's path should show what kids receive.